for joining us, the Wealthy Retailer Podcast with your host, Dan Holman. Every episode, Dan dives into the retail headlines that matter to you, the independent retailer, covering topics ranging from retailer inventory, technology, marketing, retailers' questions, and more. The Wealthy Retailer Podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. Learn more at retailbycrs.com. And now, here's Dan Holman.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Wealthy Retailer Podcast for the week of July 29th, end of summer. Rob, sunshine,
end of summer, Dan. Whoa, time out, man. Time out. It's the middle of summer.
It's Alberta. I think we're going to get
give it up that quick.
We're going to get summer till September.
Some of these forest fires, smoky days that it's not as sunny as it should be right now. So, yeah, looking for that to come to an end in a hurry.
Yeah, we were nice and gray here yesterday from the smoke, and then today it's beautiful blue sky. So the wind's blowing in the right direction. So hopefully you get some clear sky there.
The proverbial Alberta weather. If you don't like it, just wait an hour and it will change on it. Yeah. Well, and until those blue skies come, we got a few headlines to talk about this week, Dan. Look at RAAS with two A's there. Retail as a service, and maybe a little more challenging for some to grasp. So we're going to chat about that story. Looking forward to that. Of course, with the changing landscape of e-commerce, a story about how it needs to really needs that infrastructural support to expand, and a story about it's all about experience. And this story about a new toy store experience. So break out your Legos and get ready to join us there. Okay, Dan, first story coming to us from the good folks at Gifts and Decorative Accessories, the Gifts and, I'm not even sure how you say it, DEC.com. So this first story talking about, that retail as a service, an offshoot, if you will, of software as a service. I think more people know that term, right. SaaS.
Yeah.
What jumped out here, Dan? What do you want to?
Yeah, this story from Carol Schroeder, and Carol is the co-owner of Orange Tree Imports in Madison, Wisconsin, and she's the author of Specialty Shop Retailing: How You Can Succeed in Today's Market. And she goes on to contribute in this article, or write in this article, this conversation about RAAS. And RAAS, is the latest iteration that does come from SaaS. We're comfortable with SaaS. SaaS is software as a service. It allows companies to use software made available by a provider, via the cloud. So I host product and allow people to access it through my cloud, and that means that my software is being used as a service, or software as a service. And so we've already been using this type of platform, SaaS, for email marketing, bookkeeping, payroll processing, and maybe even point of sale. Right. And the concept of RAAS, or retail as a service, may be a bit more challenging to grasp, but it's been going on for a long, long time. And Simon Jones from Valtech is quoted as saying, RAAS is the reinvention of the traditional department store, where multiple retailers promote their products in the same shared space. The difference is that rather than a focus on stock management and the hard sell, these stores are all about the immersive brand experience. There are fewer products on the shelves, but they've beefed up storytelling, and staff become less and less like a clerk and more of an actor or an actress on a stage performing, which really is what we love about even experiential retail, is that we now get to take people to a different place. And the idea of stores offering RAAS, or retailing services, to brands for a fee is expanding to independent shops. This article may be based in Miami, but we see it everywhere. And I think you'll remember that department stores, Rob, if you've ever walked into a Bay, a Simpson Sears, stores within a store, or retail as a service, the Bay provides the foundation, and they bring in cosmetic sales. And those cosmetic people, are maybe Estee Lauder or someone else that's coming in to sell products within that store. And so this idea that we're seeing I don't want to say explode, but come to the forefront in Miami through a company called Pivot Market, is where they've got 100 stores that feature 3,000 brands throughout cosmetics and apparel. And these brick and mortar stores set aside, one or more spaces to showcase samples of merchandise from Pivot brands. The companies book space for time, that might be 1 week or 1 year, and pay the retailer a monthly fee to be there. And then any sales made go directly to the brand. And so, as Simon Jones pointed out in this article, department stores have been using this concept forever. They farm out shoe sales or cosmetic sales, and RAAS pop-up might help indie retailers create interesting experiences, for repeat customers. And a lot of these brands, and we've seen store within a store, we've seen it in our outdoor stores, where North Face will come in and put up a display. It has happened this way forever in the furniture world. We provide an opportunity for a pop-up for the brand in my store. They give me some special displays, drive some events, or events that drive some traffic to the store. And I think Carol goes on in this article, which we'll have a link to. Really decent article here, really good article. She did a great job, but she is an author, I think, maybe a side hustle as an author, so not surprising how well it was written. But she comes off and says, hey, listen, if you're having some trouble making ends meet and have some underutilized space, maybe this model could be financially advantageous for your business. Let's go and find brands that want to put inventory in my store that I get a fee from, and I maybe have space that is underutilized. And we've certainly seen, Rob, where stores have narrowed up their presentation, creating perhaps more vacancy on their store floors. And this is a great opportunity.
Well, when you talk about that comparison to SaaS, like you think, way back, the cost, the burden of taking on that full accounting system yourself, and I just quickly think of, shared opportunity. The more they can get that opportunity out there for many to share in, cost of entry comes down, opportunity goes up, all of this. And you've talked lots in the past about those little pop-up experiences in independent stores, and this just really illustrates that.
Right. And the idea of postponing capital expense is how SaaS became so relevant and prevalent in our world today. It's that someone else is sharing the cost of the capital investment, and that happens more and more frequently in software than anywhere else. But we also see it with developers and home builders. We see it with car dealerships. And certainly we've seen it in department stores, furniture stores forever. And now the indie retailer maybe has an opportunity to utilize some corner in their store, some space in their store, to bring in someone else to sell. And we've talked about bringing pop-ups into your store. This is exactly what RAAS is. And just a reinforcement that, hey, today's a new world. Let's look at doing things differently than we did yesterday.
Yeah. Go find some collaborators and just, hey, trade you a corner. I'll take your corner, you take my corner. That would sure be interesting. See how that works out.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay, into our next story. It comes from entrepreneur.com, talking about the changing landscape of e-commerce and just that infrastructure. And we've talked lots about this, Dan, that it's not just so easy to jump online, away you go. It really requires some important support in the back end.
Right.
What jumped out at you in this story?
So you're right. Entrepreneur.com. Entrepreneur.com is a worldwide entity. And this article came from Entrepreneur.com, India. And I love this name. Shashir Jaju is the author here, and he's a frequent contributor to Entrepreneur.com. And he's written this piece about Nick Trilogy, who is an entrepreneur, a former bodybuilder. And this guy created a company called Automate with Amazon, which is really an organization that guides store owners to creating a passive channel of income. Now, I'm going to pause on that. We'll come back and talk about passive income in retail in a minute. But as in all conversations, anytime e-com comes up, Amazon sneaks into this conversation. But truthfully, the skills and tactics taught by people like Nick are critical in continuing our growth. As we've talked about repeatedly, professional development is critical in your entrepreneurial path, and online retail education is just as important as any other component in your retail learning journey. Now, unless you want to see another billionaire sent to space in a penis-shaped rocket, you got to step up your e-com game, man. I mean, this is...
I didn't know Dick Rocket was going to make it into our podcast this week.
But here's the deal. I mean, they're learning something that we're not, right? And platforms like Shopify and Lightspeed have made it really easy to get online. But getting there is just the beginning. We've got to figure out how to be there, how to exist there, how to hone our skills there. And passive income is not where retail lives, man. We work hard for every dollar. And I don't care how great you are. If you think you're going to continue to make this great living while you sleep, passive income, you got another thing coming. You got to yank your head out of your ass. We've got to continue honing in on the skills that make us relevant online. Kevin Costner doesn't live in retail, brother. If you build it, they will not come. You don't just have to build it. You got to show it to them. You got to lead them. You've got to bring them there. And if we just get them to our site, and it's, not indicative of the experience that they're looking for, they don't buy and there is no income, right? And so we've got to look to channels that help us improve our prowess when it comes to building our e-com division or channel. And we spend a good part of our time as entrepreneurs reaching out and getting support and coaching and collaboration and mastermind groups. And if e-com isn't part of your educational channel, are you really getting the most out of it, or are you throwing good money away after bad? And then, hey, if you are, then if you're good with that, then let him get back in his rocket and
the old earning income while you sleep. It's like, well, I'm gonna open my eye just a peek then, and by theory, I should be able to outperform you.
Right. There's
sorry.
just not. I love the way that and I'm not slamming Nick at all. Nick is filling a void that's in the marketplace, and this idea for store owners to have a passive income channel, it's not accurate. It's an inaccurate statement. Yeah. There's nothing passive about the work that goes in to building out your e-com channel. I chatted with Kay, one of our favorite retailers in Virginia earlier this week. I think it was earlier this week, might have been last week. But we were talking about her Shopify site and why she's not seeing Shopify. Well, quite frankly, if you build it, they will come. Didn't fly for Kay. We got to put a little more effort into getting people there and showcasing what we are, who we are, why we are, to engage that audience. And there's nothing passive about it. It takes a lot of work.
Well, you think of if you position your e-commerce like just maybe in the middle there, and you talk about all the work that needs to happen on the front end to get them there, and then all that work on the back end, and we've talked in the past of treating it like that second physical location, and just to your point, the work that needs to happen all day, every day on the front end and the back end.
Right. And as manufacturers, we maybe have an opportunity to see some passive income in the future. Passive income for a lot of SaaS-driven models that are out there are subscription-based. It's passive income. I throw a little bit of candy out there in the dish. People pay to scoop it up. When the dish is empty, I throw a little bit more in, but it might last 30, 60, 90, 180 days. Well, that's maybe a little bit more passive than what retail is, right? There's nothing passive.
Do you think, passive's I think I'd agree, a terrible word, but more on that lifetime value of a client, the recurring revenue, and maybe that's a bit better way to frame them up. Look, it's not just going to gift to you, but you focus on that lifetime value of that client, and Yeah, it can
Right.
fall
And
a little bit more in that coming back to you.
right. But Rob, I think we have to think about this, not just about the lifetime value of the client,
Yep.
but what entering this space, what opportunity presents itself when we enter this space. I go from serving a community of 60,000 to 60 million.
Right.
Right. That takes, I mean, you're expanding your reach by being, not just being online, but being proficient online. Right.
Gotcha.
And showcasing who and what you are. It isn't just about recapturing the same customer over and over and over again. Although, Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, is going to tell you that there's nothing, more pointed in a business than your customer acquisition costs. We got to know what that is. And so once you own them, that cost goes down and down and down and down. So totally agree with you. But I'm going to say that you also have to think about, I can see a whole lot more people when I get out there. And I'm going to say one of the questions that we have on a special podcast next week is all about that growth, that opportunistic growth that's out there.
Right on. Okay, I'm looking forward to that one.
This podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. We've been empowering retailers across North America for 30 years with the latest in point-of-sale technology, best-in-class support, merchandise intelligence with open-to-buy planning, and much more. CRS has the retail solution to help take your retail business to the next level of success. Visit retailbycrs.com to learn more. Remember, Canadian Retail Solutions exists to help make you, the independent retailer, better.
Okay, Dan, the next story comes from retaildive.com. Experience, all about that. And this one talking about the new toy store experience. If I read that quickly, I was about to say Toy Story, but toy store. What'd you like here?
Well, this really was a takeoff about the new Lego store in New York City. So we're going to make sure that we send a copy of this podcast over to our good friend Laszlo. Laszlo is the Lego master. He is the Northern Alberta Lego master, this guy. So he's going to love this.
The Nay-Lug crew.
Toys R Us goes bankrupt, I don't know how many years ago, and it's never really been replaced. And here's how others are designing experiences for this digitally enabled generation. And Lego's newest store in New York City is populated by a host of massive 3D brick or Lego models.
Yep.
A big yellow taxi cab, various New York landmarks, centerpiece, a tree of discovery. The last model alone, that tree of discovery, is comprised of 880,000 Legos.
If you put a value on it, like even just as a rough, thumb, 10 cents a piece. So, almost 90 grand.
Crazy. So in this store, in addition to a lot of physical Lego bricks, the store is also centered on building out this digital experience for customers to engage. And they include this mini figure factory where shoppers design their own mini figure, an augmented reality brick lab that involves creating a physical Lego model and rendering it into a digital experience, and a storytelling table aimed at older kids and adults where they can check out Lego prototypes and how the designs work. And this newish, I'm saying newish concept, is a far cry from the days of old where toy retailers carried aisles upon aisles of toys. The Targets and the Walmarts of the world have used toys as a lost leader forever, right? They promote them heavily. They sell them at little to no margin to just get people in that front door, right? Well, toy stores, specialty toy stores cannot operate this way, right? We can't operate a negative profit in that channel. We are a toy only store. And so experiential retail is really the name of the game. And each of us has a mountain to climb in creating an experience driven store. And it is stores like the New York City Lego store. I'm going to say, Rob, we've talked about experiential retail for a long time, way before COVID. And we can still walk in stores today that have zero experience factor. I say experience, I mean outside of the how I'm being served. We've seen big guys, big players like North Face create a cold room and Nike a hockey store. And,
Yeah.
we're seeing more and more and more of that come up. But as indie retailers, we miss the mark on creating some kind of an experience where people can interact with our product. And I get apparel stores being challenged, but there's lots of AR opportunities, augmented reality opportunities for our apparel retailers. And I went back I tried to think about what was my best experiential store. Where did I have the greatest experience ever? Now, here you are, a Western kid. I don't know if you know who Sam the Record Man is.
Oh, yes.
Right. I mean, an iconic downtown Toronto record store. We were kids, 14, 15. We would take the bus, 90 miles to go to Sam the Record Man. And it was a day-long event, right? And what was the experience there? You were just going to buy an album, right? You were going to buy a Steve Miller album or a Kiss album or a Trooper or whatever, but you spent the day, the morning, the afternoon listening to music. Every station had the opportunity to plug a headset in, hear an album, and that became part of the experience. And there were times I would be able to go with my, friends, and each of us introducing each other to different genres and albums. And that was experience. And we're missing that in a lot of our stores today. And listen, Sam Snyderman, a iconic indie retailer. I mean, Sam the Record Man, no greater store ever existed in the, up until, the digital age. I mean, even Sam the Record Man had a shit ton of CDs, but then, along came Napster and, was perhaps downfall. But the whole point I'm making is even in that record store, it was about the experience, often having artists there. And a great friend of mine, Margot Kottman from Project Retail, another Management One affiliate, we were just talking about events, experiences that we can have in our stores. And the other day it was, I think, National Ice Cream Day or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, park a frickin' ice cream truck in front of your store and give away ice cream cones.
Yeah.
Come up with something that engages more than just an individual. And this is really what we're hearing from camp toy stores is in this article. They talk about creating experiences for the whole family. Well, a Lego store is a family experience.
Oh, no doubt.
Right?
Place they can go hang out.
Yeah. One of our clients had a warehouse sale this weekend, and made sure that there was something there for Dad, a cold beverage. So that
well played. Not enough of that.
That's about creating that. Now, that's maybe not product experience the same way that old Sam the Record Man did, or the New York City Lego store, but it was an experience that engaged that person. And try-ons and depending on the store you're in, virtual reality can be a big part of the experience. If you're a home and gift store, you've got to have, 3D renderings and measurement tools and the opportunity for someone to stand in their room in your store, in their home, in a room in their home in your store. And the same thing happens in our apparel stores. Let's see them at that dinner Saturday night, in your store. Help take them to that place, which is all about what this augmented reality is. And this goes back to the age-old, man, you got to have experience in your store. Not age-old. I mean, certainly the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen this really
more and more. Yeah.
And in this toy category, which is a very challenged vertical, Toys R Us, Babies R Us. I mean, the list goes on of all these stores that have, shit the bed. And, aisle upon aisle of choice isn't what the consumer's looking for.
Yeah. Do you think with your retailers, it's kind of the old, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time?
Yeah.
That they, these are big examples, if you will. And do you think they get kind of where the heck do I start? And for those who may have that question, Dan, what would you say? Like, I think the ice cream truck was a neat idea. Like, just start small and then start running from there.
Well, I think, I go back to in our furniture days. How did we start small? By taking people to a different place. Well, we blew scents into each room in the store. It took you somewhere else. The beach room smelled like suntan lotion, right? The men's room, what we called our men's room, leather, and many leather bound books. It smelled like cigars.
Rich mahogany.
Yeah, it smelled like cigars, and the hockey room smelled like popcorn, and the cafe smelled like chocolate chip cookies, and over again. And that's a small step in that direction of changing someone's experience. Fresh flowers in your store will do wonders. We always had fresh flowers in our stores, but we also blew fresh flower scents that made people feel at ease, comfortable, relaxed. The smell of cinnamon, what does it feel like, Rob, when you walk into mom's house and she's just baked a pie?
Yeah.
Right? It takes you somewhere else. It takes you back to being a kid when your mom was cooking.
Yeah, the nostalgia aspect of it too.
Right.
Yeah,
and totally. That's part of experiential retail, taking people to a place that they're not expecting when they walk in your store, which in most indie retail, can I help you? Let's get away from that shit and figure something else out. And putting people at ease is part of that. So you're right. How do we eat an elephant? How do we get down that road? Maybe I can't afford to go and buy an AR mannequin for my store, but I can start to think about the little things that change her experience while she's here. The ability to make a cocktail, to make a coffee or a cappuccino, right? Yeah. To have an ice cream, to have some popcorn, to have some champagne or strawberries. That's just starting. That is the icebreaker to becoming more experience driven. I think about Leanne over at Simone and Ivy, had an IG wall in her store. They built a wall that was, about, start making a life, not a living, like that. Let's fun. And
good stuff.
We see it in other stores. You spend any time in Nashville. Nashville's got a few great stores that are Instagram lineup worthy, and that's part of that experience. It's for another purpose. And by the way, they're buying product. And no greater example of this. Okay, now I'm sort of dragging this out on you, man. But no greater example of an experiential retail entity than Pike's Place Fish Market, right?
Yeah, beware of flying fish.
All about the experience there. The hype, the entertainment, the laughter, the engagement. Yeah. That's an experience. And then, by the way, people are buying fish.
Yeah.
And shipping it home.
I bought a 50-pounder. I had no need for that. I just wanted to see him catch it.
Yeah, right. But that was about experience. Let's create an experience that allows us to be world famous. And our retailers have to be thinking, how do I become world famous? How do I dominate
I love that.
my vertical? If you don't think that way, well, you're probably always going to be 2 steps behind.
Even a little, just ask yourself that question of, okay, if they're not buying something right now, what's going to make them hang out here for 5 or 10 minutes?
Right.
And if you don't have an answer to that, well, okay, that there starts your journey of what can you do?
And I think as we coach retailers, Rob, we're constantly saying your goal is to make a memory, not a sale. The sale is consequential to the experience they have in your store. If you set out in the morning, to make great memories for people to leave your store going, wow,
that was awesome.
Sales come along with it, right? It's consequential. It happens because. So.
Right on. Thanks for that, Dan. Okay, this point of the podcast, we usually have a question of the week from a retailer. Dan, it sounds like you've had a few piling up. We've got some good ones. So we thought it'd be cool to put them all as one, and that's going to be in next week's podcast.
Yeah.
Can you give us a preview?
Sure, for sure. So every week we pull out a retailer question sort of out of the mailbag, And we've definitely seen a bit of pile up in the mailbag, which I am, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how thankful I am that there is a bit of a pile up in the mailbag. Yep. It gives me, a bit of a windbag, an opportunity to to talk. So we thought, hey, let's do a special podcast next week and focus on 3 questions. And we chose 3 questions that have some relationship to each other, or perhaps move in succession with each other. So we got a great question from Brent about offering some tips on a startup menswear retailer. Jessica asked us to share some more information on inventory planning and the Management One Advantage. And then Carol, who asked us a question, I think it was last week or the week before, we talked about, she wants some more information on how to start building a vision. So we've got 3 really solid questions for maybe a bit of a one-off podcast for next week. And we're going to roll with these 3 questions, spend 20 or 30 minutes, knocking them off, and go from there. And so if you've got questions that you want to have answered, just anything, any burning or nagging question, or you're not sure where to turn, fire an email off to dan@thewealthyretailer.com, and we're going to throw it in and out of the bag for you.
Right on. If you haven't yet, folks, head to retailbycrs.com. Make sure you sign up for that newsletter. We're going to have the links to the stories from this week's podcast as well. We've got a few more stories that didn't quite make the list to chat about, but still, I'm sure there's going to be some interest for you there. Dick's Sporting Goods, they're testing 5 store concepts, and the story about the why. A story about how new or emerging brands can get big holiday shopping coverage. Nothing better than getting some media coverage there, so spark some ideas. And I like this, Dan, right in the story, many didn't think they'd make it at all. How could you be such a specialty retailer like that? A great little story about a Winnipeg lingerie and bra fitting boutique celebrating their 25th anniversary. So cool to share that.
Yeah, love those good stories, and links to all of those in our weekly newsletter. You got to get over to retailbycrs.com, subscribe, share it with your retail friends, and certainly, catch the podcast on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. Leave us a comment, send it to somebody that you think might find some value in 2 old guys chatting about retail.
There we go. I'm not old, Dan. I don't know who you're talking to.
I can see the gray in your beard, brother.
There we go. Have a great day.
You too.